Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? Man, you guys are as awake as the first service. I love this. Oh, my name's Jason Allison, and I'm one of the circuit riding pastors that keep coming through here while your pastor is convalescing, so to speak. I just wanted to give you a quick update for those that maybe didn't hear or didn't see on Facebook or anything like that. Rob was scheduled to have surgery last week. And that got postponed, but it will happen hopefully, all the caveats that go with that, this week instead, which I know pushes everything back. And I got a few cathartic texts from Rob about how he felt about, the surgery being moved. But I want you to know that he is, still getting better and is hoping, to really start kind of turn the corner and head into the final stretch of this whole process. And so I don't know about you, but we want to continue to pray for him. And if you don't mind, I would like to just take a minute right now and pray for Rob and everything going on. God, as we begin to open your word this morning, I thank you for the pastor of this church. He is a faithful servant who loves you, and he loves the people of this church. God, I pray your blessings on him. I pray that this week he would be able to get the surgery done so he could truly start that final leg of recovery and rehabilitation and be ready to get back here and to do what you have called him to do, what he loves to do, and what he's good at doing, shepherding your people here in Loudonville. God, we love you and we trust you, and we ask you now, as we do open your word, that you would give us ears to hear, you would open our hearts, that we could truly hear what you want us to hear in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, I don't know if you realize this, but there is actually a method to the madness of what we are doing. This entire year, we are actually spending time, and Rob and Jeremy went away on a retreat, and they worked all this out last year. And so the entire year, we are focusing on things that are basically countercultural practices that will help you and us, all of us together, to basically navigate everything going on in the world in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if you've heard, but this year there's this little election happening. And as you know, sometimes that seems to divide people, and every so often maybe, there's some problems that arise from that. What our goal is in all of this is to help you cultivate and develop spiritual practices that are countercultural, because what they do is they help you then navigate when the world gets crazy. And trust me, it's going to get crazier over the next few months. As that happens, you and we are grounded in something that is a deeper foundation than anything else that this culture may be able to offer us. And so I just want you to know that there really is a process to what we're doing. We're not just winging this. We are truly trying to help you. If you remember in January, like 100 years ago, it feels like now, right? In January, we talked about developing this countercultural practice of prayer, right? This idea that we can actually come before God. We can talk to God. You practice some things, and hopefully you've been able to continue that. Then the next series that we did, we just finished that up right before Easter. We talked about this idea of trusting God, right? We said, what happens when God goes off script? That's when we learn to trust God. One of the texts that I got from Rob this week was, I hate it when we're doing a series at church and then God makes me actually learn the lesson that we're supposed to be learning. So I hope that you are understanding that this is real life stuff. Right? That this is stuff where we learn what does it look like to trust God when he doesn't seem to be doing what we thought he should be doing. Well, we're starting a new series today. It's called Entrusted, as you just saw. And the idea behind this is not just, hey, we're going to talk about money, because that's not the whole point of this. I know you show up the week after Easter. What are they thinking? This is the week after Easter. You're not supposed to talk about money yet, right? We got to make sure people that visited and they came back, we don't want them to think we're just all about money. And it's not about that. It's about more than that. We are going to talk about money a little bit, because the countercultural practice that we are going to dive into over the next few weeks is the idea of stewardship or generosity. What does it look like to cultivate the cultural practice, the spiritual practice of stewardship, of a heart of generosity. Just so you know, too, the big idea in all this, right, is that God has called all of us, both individually and collectively, to be responsible stewards of what has been entrusted to us. And I will tell you that how we handle, especially our financial resources, exposes our heart in a lot of ways. It's not that I'm going to tell you you're supposed to do, you ought to, you should. I try never to should on people, okay? I want you to know that what it does is, though, hopefully it exposes you. It exposes to yourself. I know whenever someone asks me, how do I know if I've really got a heart of generosity? I'm like, well, show me your calendar and show me your credit card statement, because that's going to show me what's really important to you. And so what we hope to do is to give you some tools, to give you some things, excuse me, to give you some ideas about what you can do to truly cultivate a heart of generosity, to truly understand what it is to be entrusted with all that God has given us. Now, this is truly more than just about money. It's about everything, because let's be honest, everything that is created was given to us to take care of. Right? I mean, that's what God says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." We have been entrusted with creation. As a matter of fact, the role of the gospel, this is a side note, just a thing you can really maybe stick in the back of your mind and simmer on. The role of the gospel is to help us get back to glorifying God through taking care of the glory that he has given us. So part of taking care of the world around us, the people around us, all of creation, is to basically say, God, I want to take the glory that you have given me by creating me in your image, and I want to steward everything around me as though it's yours. I want to take care of things and handle myself and the things around me well. And the gospel enables us, it empowers us to do that. It is more than just, hey, I'm going to say a prayer so I can go to heaven. It is the power of God, the glory of God, that is then being reflected back to him, because we are doing what he has called us to do, because he has made a way for that to happen. Sorry, that's a side note. I get all preachy on that. My bad. So this series is really going to focus on your identity as a human, as a created in God's image human, and how you really have been given so much. And it is not, the purpose is not to guilt you into doing something you're not called to do. Right? You're not going to feel guilty after this. The idea is you're going to feel excited to trust that God really is who he says he is, and that he is calling us to be something more than just people who walk through this world and do our own thing and hold on to our stuff because it's my stuff. Now, people who know me understand this. I was an only child. I grew up an only child. And so when it comes to board games, I had to get really creative in the way I played board games. One of my favorite games, honestly, I hate it now, but I loved it then, was Monopoly. You all got Monopoly money when you walked in, or it's on your chair. I want you to hold on to this. And you stick it in your wallet, stick it in your purse, in your pocket, whatever it takes, because hopefully that will serve as a reminder, once we get to the end, of what this is all about. But I remember growing up, going down in the basement, getting out my Monopoly board, and setting up, the iron, the hat, right, and the dog, and then the wheelbarrow. Those were the four that I usually liked, okay? And I would hand out the money, and then I would be each of those people. Here would be, a couple days of a Monopoly game going on, and as this probably is confessing way too much, but by the end of the game, generally speaking, one of those characters got pretty upset, right, because they were losing, and they would just inevitably flip the board, get mad, and storm off, leaving the other three to clean everything up. It was so frustrating. But as I reflect back on that and I start thinking through all these things, I realize, you know what? That there is a principle hidden in there, a monopoly principle, right, is what I call it. The monopoly game principle that I think really can apply to our lives today. And here's the principle. At the end of the game, everything goes back in the box. It doesn't matter who won. It doesn't matter who has the most houses. It doesn't matter who's got all the money. At the end of the game, after you clean up where somebody got mad and threw everything, right, it all goes back in the box. And if you want to carry that any further, at the end of our life, we go in the box. You see, this series is not just about money, or you feeling good or bad or guilty or not guilty about having it or not using it well. This is about checking our hearts and our attitudes towards how we see God. And if we trust God in the midst of this, if we are willing to submit to him and to steward the resources that he has given us. In Hebrews chapter 3, the writer says, "For every house has a builder, but the one who built everything is God." In Luke chapter 12, Jesus tells a parable. And I'm going to read it to you, and I just want you to kind of listen to it. Like the early listeners, those first listeners would have heard it, right? It's not going to be up on the screens or anything like that. And I just want you to listen. This is a story that Jesus told. And let me just read it. It says, "Then someone called from the crowd." I'm in Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13, if you wanted to follow along. "And then someone called from the crowd, 'Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me.' Jesus replied, 'Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?' Then he said, 'Beware. Guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own.' Then he told a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, 'What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops.' Then he said, 'I know. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all of my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and I'll say to myself, my friend, you have enough money, enough stuff stored away for years to come. Now take it easy. Eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for?' Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth but not have a rich relationship with God." Now that's Jesus talking. That's not me. But I want to lean into this a little bit, because I think as we look at this parable, as we think about what Jesus was saying, there are, and especially as we see it through the lens, right, of the monopoly game principle, at the end of the game, everything goes back in the box. I think we can see a couple of things that may begin to inform us as we move forward in our life and as we think about who we are, who God made us to be, and how we can best cultivate this practice of generosity. First thing I want us to see is that ultimately God owns the box. Right? It doesn't matter how much stuff you get. When it goes back in the box, God's the one who made the box. We may build things, but we are not creating things the way God did. Right? God said, "Let there be," and there was. We say, "Let's get a bunch of stuff. Let's find a good builder. Let's find a good contractor. Let's try to put all this stuff together," and then we get a house. God just says, "Let there be." Everything that is because God made it. Psalm 24 says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all the people belong to him." As you think about the parable, how many times did that farmer say, my soul, my crops, my barns, my life? He never recognized that it really wasn't his. Now, as modern Americans in a capitalistic society, right, that's the economy that we have, we talk a lot about ownership. And that really is a foundational principle within the economy that we have. Ownership is something, and let's be honest, it's good to own things. It's good to own land, a house, right? Those are things that build wealth over time. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to recognize that we may own it in a horizontal way, but ultimately God owns all of it. And because we think in so much of this economy of owning something and having something, what it does is it begins to cultivate in us a zero-sum mentality around the stuff that we see, right? Because if I own this table, then you can't own it. Only I can, because it's mine. And there's a limited number of things in the world. There's only so much land, right? And so if you own a piece of land, no one else can. It's a zero-sum game. It's also that's what monopoly's like, right? The goal is to bankrupt everybody else by getting all their stuff, because there's only so much, and if you own it all, you win. It's where the old bumper sticker, right, that says, "He who dies with the most toys wins." The problem is, they didn't do the second part of that bumper sticker. It should also say, "But he still dies." And so I think about this and I think, wow, God does own the box, but do we recognize that in the way we deal in our just everyday interactions, in the way we look at things, hold on to things, view the world around us? Have we cultivated a spiritual practice of acknowledging that God owns the box? In the Old Testament, Moses was confirming the covenant with the Israelites, right? God up on the mountain, right? He established the covenant with them. It's a promise. It's a binding promise between God and the people. And he brings them together and he says, listen, I want to confirm this with you. Here are the things I want you to remember. And Moses, towards the end of his life, he is talking to them about this, right? He's confirming all of this with them. And he's telling them, hey, listen, if you agree to this promise, this covenantal relationship between you and God, you're going to go into this new land that he's promising. You're going to see some amazing things. You are going to be blessed. You are going to establish yourself. You're going to see God move. You're going to see the crops grow. You're going to establish yourself as a people. But I don't want you to forget that God is the one who gave it to you. He says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, he says, he did all this, speaking of God, so that you would never say to yourself, I have achieved this wealth with my own strength and energy. Remember the Lord your God, he is the one who gives you the power to be successful in order to fulfill the covenant he confirmed to your ancestors with an oath. Part of the relationship we have with God is him saying, yes, I want to see you flourish, but I want you to remember that I'm the one who empowers that. I'm the one who gives you all that you have. And so what he asks of us is, okay, I want you to cultivate the mindset, and I want you to think like a steward, not an owner. Right? I want you to think about yourself not as the owner of everything, but as one who takes care of what has been entrusted to you. See, that's the thing, a steward, and that's not a word we use very often anymore, let's be honest, right? A steward manages someone else's stuff. Right? He holds on to it, he keeps it, he tries to keep it going in a good way so that when the owner comes back, it has, grown or at least stayed solid, whatever those type things are. Most of you have, I say that like everybody just has a financial investor. No, let's be honest. Most of us don't have a financial advisor. But, if you have any type of retirement plan, even if it's through your work or whatever, someone is managing that fund. It's not theirs, but they're stewarding it on your behalf. And let's be honest, we'd like them to do a good job. Right? I mean, when at the rate I'm saving, I'm going to be like 93 when I can retire, and then I can live for about 8 minutes, and then I'll be cashed out. But I'm saying, like, what little bit I have given them, I would like them to take care of it so I could at some point retire. And I'm entrusting it to them. God has entrusted all of creation to us. And that includes financial resources. That includes, the world around us, the people in your life. All of these things God has entrusted to you. And that is a mindset shift that is difficult to make, and it takes time. But it comes when we begin this countercultural practice of generosity. It helps us understand what stewardship looks like, because it reminds us, it's not mine, it's God's. And I want to take good care of it. Are we gonna steward those things? Because when we do, here's the great part. When we steward it well, God gets the glory. Right? I mean, that's the cool part about this is when we follow these principles, when we do these things and we start to understand what generosity looks like, and we start to say, God, it's not mine. I want to use it for your glory. God gets glorified, which means we get to be part of that glory because God created us in his image. And so all of this ends up working out so that things go well for us because God is the one glorified by it. Second principle. I'm going to keep it short today. We're talking about money. We don't want to get too, crazy, okay? Second observation about this principle is I want you to see that in Monopoly, the houses are plastic, right? They're temporary. They aren't even that well made. Because when you throw it at somebody, it's not big enough to really do any damage. You really got to get one of those, pieces that are a little bigger, have some heft to them if you want to do any damage. They're just little plastic houses. There's no lasting value. There's no lasting value in the things we build. Because eventually they do fall apart. Anybody here ever renovated an old house? No. You look around like, okay, I might as well just tear this down and start over at times, right? Because things don't last forever, and that's fine. They weren't meant to. And so when we start thinking about our stuff, we need to realize, wait, this stuff, it doesn't last forever. It's just for about right now. And I want to take care of it right now, but it's not forever. In Psalm 39, the psalmist writes, Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered, how fleeting my life is. Even our bodies are temporary. I love that because some of the translations talk about, teach me to number my days. And the idea there is not, oh, I'm going to die. I'm always going to think about the day I'm going to, like my birth certificate has an expiration date, so I'm really in trouble. Like, no, it's not like that at all. It's like, no, I want you to understand that if I've only got 2 weeks, then those 2 weeks better be very valuable, right? I want to value the days that I have, and I want to make sure that I pour myself into them. I want to steward them well. I don't want to waste them. In Matthew 6, Jesus, very familiar passage, right? Everybody's heard this. Don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. See, in the parable, the rich man felt like he had made it. And he could take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. And that is the epitome of living for just right now. Right? I mean, that's the goal for a lot of people. Right? If I can just make enough, right? And then I can just take it easy. But at the very end of that parable, Jesus says, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Because it fades. And we fade. When we understand that we are stewards, we understand that we are more than simply citizens of right now, of this country even. We are citizens of the kingdom of God, which is way bigger than right now, which is way bigger than, the boundaries of the United States of America. And so we have to begin to understand that what we have is not a sign of our prosperity or even God's blessing because we deserve it. We earned it. What we have has been entrusted to us to be used for God's purposes. It's not ours. Now, this doesn't mean we can't enjoy living right now. Like God says, I want you to live. I want you to, as Jesus said, have life and life to the full. Right? I want you to exist in this world. I want you to have what you need, but I want you to trust me, and I want you to see that what you have isn't yours, it's mine, and I'm entrusting it to you. And that changes the way we view our stuff. See, we need to keep our eyes focused on something far bigger than our next car, our next house, our next vacation. God doesn't evaluate our life by our bank account or how much stuff we got or how good we were at our business, how successful we were. God evaluates our heart. Did you trust me? Did you worship me? In Hebrews 13, the writer says, and don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are the sacrifices that please God. Getting one more thing isn't what pleases God. He's not upset with it. But if you want to please God, give to someone who needs it. Share. Allow others to use the resources that maybe you have. John Wesley, I went to a Wesleyan school, and so I love all of his stuff, but one of his quotes is, he says, work as hard as you can to make all the money that you can, spend as little as you can, in order to give away as much as you can. I like that concept. I'm still working on it. So I want to do something real quick, and I'm going to need a volunteer from the crowd, and I will not embarrass you, I promise. Okay, this is not going to do that in any way, shape, or form. And so I just need someone real quick who would come up and just hold something for me. Would you come up? Do you mind? I'm going to put you on. Yeah. Please. Thank you. Come on up. Okay, you can just stand right there. And what's your name?
Callie.
Callie?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Everybody give her a round of applause. She came up on stage. That was pretty good. Okay. As you know, in the Bible, there's this thing called the tithe. We're not going to talk about that today, okay? So put your mind at rest. But in the tithe, the concept is 10%. The first 10% of what you make goes to God. So I have a dime, because that's 10% of a dollar, right? Did I do my math right? I think so. Okay, good enough. So we have a math scholar here. And so we're going to, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you this dime, okay? Now, I want you to put it in your hand, and I want you to hold it. Okay, now listen. Whatever I do, don't let me get that dime, no matter what happens. I'm just kidding. Whatever happens, don't let me get that, okay? You ready? You sure? Okay, hang on one second. Okay, there's no spiders. There's nothing terrible in here, okay? But here, let me just show you. So hold on to it. Hold it out just a little bit. So no matter what happens, you hold on tight. Because, I mean, when we have something, we got to hold on to it, right? I mean, when we've got something, we've got money in the bank, we've got whatever, we got to hold on to this. We can't ever let it go. So even, hold on, okay, you got it here. Even if God decides to start pouring something on you, okay, open your hand. You still got it, right? But look at all you missed out on. See, that's what happens when we hold on. Thank you so much. You may go sit down. Thank you. Oh. Do you know what it's like to walk into the bank and say, I need $80 in dimes? That is so much fun. You see, when we hold on and we won't open ourselves to receiving anything else from God, we just hold on to what we have, we miss out on seeing what God could do if we would steward what we have and not see it as our own, but as God's. And say, God, I want to be open to whatever it is you have. And I know that you are not going to evaluate me based on how successful I am in this life. You're going to evaluate me. You're going to judge my heart. And in order for my heart to be given to you, I have to say, I'm not the owner. You are. And I will take what you've given me. I will be what you've entrusted to me, and I will steward it for your glory. I will give you the glory in it. I will be generous because you have been generous with me. What are you holding on to right now so tightly that if God wanted to bless you, he couldn't because you couldn't receive it? What is it that owns you? That you have stored up here that now you know this is really where moth and rust corrupt, where thieves can steal, but you want to hold on to it, and God's saying, oh, if you would just invest it where I am, you could see so much more going on. As you take that little piece of Monopoly money, I want you to think about every time you see it in your wallet, in your purse, whatever it is, and maybe even take a minute on the back of it, because there's nothing on the back, right? It's not real money, sorry. On the back of it is blank. Maybe write down something that you're holding on to, that you need to release to God. That doesn't mean he's going to take it, okay? It just means you've got to change your heart posture. Say, God, it's yours. I will do with it as you ask. Now, this was against my better judgment, but the leadership at New Hope said they want to do something, and I'm going to introduce it. And we'll get more into it as we go, and I'll let Bud talk about it in another week to give more details. But here's the thing. They want to offer a 90-day money-back guarantee if you are willing to tithe, to give 10% of your income to the church, to God, right? I mean, that's the Old Testament, right? The people tithed to the temple because the temple was the community's place, right, where they would come and meet with God. And that's kind of what the church is today, okay? It's a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you commit for the next 3 months to tithe, and if after 90 days you feel like your life does not have any more joy, you don't feel any more contentment, they will give you your money back. Now, you don't get a tax deduction if they give it back, okay? I'm just make this very clear. The IRS pays attention to this, okay? But they said they would give it back. So I want to challenge you to think about, what am I holding on to that's keeping me from being generous? Why am I not willing to invest in what God is doing? As a matter of fact, and And in Malachi it says, put God to the test and give back to him and see if he won't bless you. And so that's my challenge this morning. As you think about, you're not an owner. You're a steward. And this is what God has asked you to do. Are you willing to do it? What are you holding on to? And will you trust him with what you've been entrusted? Let's pray. God, thank you that in all of this, you are God and we are not. You created everything because honestly, we couldn't have. And so we give you the glory even in that. And as you have now entrusted us as your creation, as humanity created in your image, we want to trust you in that. We want to steward it well. And that may mean something as simple as starting to give. It may mean seeing the needs around me and doing something to meet them rather than holding on to what I have as strongly as I can. God, we want to honor you and give you glory because you've done so much for us. God, I pray your blessing on this church, as I know they're already pretty generous. But may they begin to see the blessings of that and how it ripples into this community in so many ways. We love you, God, and we give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.